Hey everyone, today on Worth the Wait, we are talking about what fair really looks like in a relationship. This is one of Bree's favorite words. If you watched the last episode, Bree talked about how she has some brat tendencies. And one of those things is fair. It's just not fair. Did you say that a lot with your mom?
Let me just start with this.
Okay.
Me and Dre are not going to agree on this episode, I feel like.
I think so.
We'll see.
We'll see.
It's literally one of my favorite keywords.
It
like,
is.
I think things should be fair. But I'll let you begin.
Yeah, so I mean, fair, I think in relationships, there should be a balance in responsibilities, a balance in things that happen. But what that looks like is not always at every time being 50-50. And I think that's something that we would agree on, that in every single thing and every single action is not always you do half of this, you do half of this, and that makes it fair. Sometimes somebody may take on the brunt of the responsibilities. It might be 70-30 for some things, and for a certain amount of time, it might be 80-20 the opposite way another time. Then it might be 60-40. Then at times it might be a 50-50 thing. But as you have the ebbs and flows and as relationships go, there's going to be a balance that happens. And what you're taking into consideration is the overall balance of everything and the overall time of things happening, versus just in each single moment, are you doing exactly the equal of what I am doing?
Okay. Let me give my thought
Okay.
on this. So I agree with what you said,
Yeah.
right? About sometimes it's 80-20, blah, blah, blah. But the part that I don't agree with is, like, for example, if you're saying like financially, right? If someone, it's not always going to be 50-50, but what is fair to me is if you're making 80% of the income and I'm making 20% of the income in that moment and in that time, then my load from responsibilities at home should be higher. I think that that's fair. And then vice versa.
If you're the 20.
Yes, or vice versa.
Yeah, that's the balance.
So, right, but that's what I'm saying. Whenever I feel like I'm using fair as a thing, it's like I'm thinking from an overall balanced standpoint or whatever's happening in that space or in that moment or time. Like, what is fair to each of us, taking all things considered, if that makes sense.
No, I think we're aligned on that. I think that,
Okay.
yeah, she's coming in wanting to.
No,
have a
because
dis-
every time I say you rebut me.
I think there's a
rebuttal me.
difference. I think there's a difference between the balance and responsibilities versus where fair may come and where we have different definitions of it, of what an equal compromise is or fair compromise is. So it's like if you're coming into a situation and two people want two different things and you're trying to determine what the actual compromise is, then we have different definitions of what fair could possibly be or what is equal for both of us in that moment. And some people may feel like on each and everything, it has to be a 50-50. We both get what we want. But sometimes the compromise may be what's fair is, all right, on this time, we're doing what you want. Then on the next time, we do what you want. And then over time, like I said, then it should balance out to be pretty fair or pretty much equal over time. It shouldn't be a huge imbalance on somebody feeling one way or, somebody always getting their way and somebody never getting their way, or somebody always being the one to compromise and somebody never be in a point where they're compromising in the entire relationship. So I think that that's where the balance comes in and the fair part comes in.
Let me ask you this. So I when I saw that we were talking about this, what I wrote down, or what my note said that when two people come together, each person has expectations that they have. And what makes a relationship is communicating about those expectations and setting boundaries and parameters to respect each other's expectations or, find ways to compromise. And what doesn't seem fair to me is if this is what I guess was communicated, or if this is something that you know about a person or that they've expressed as something that is important to them. I'll use the fair word when whatever that thing is seems like it's not happening, or I now don't have like the right or the freedom to it, and I'll use the fair word like, but that's not fair, like, I care about this thing, or you know what I mean. So like how for all the similar women to me listening that maybe sometimes struggle with like having to like be told no about something, or and let's not use the word no, being told not right now type of thing. Like how do you deal with that? And it kind of reminds me like our last episode was about dropping the ball.
Hmm.
And I think as a woman, if like your partner tells you like no or not right now to something in a moment and in a space where you were maybe expecting it, then it feels unfair because it's like, well, that's not what I signed up for. Or like, you knew, that this is what I wanted. And, so like, how do you, and maybe fair is not the right word, like, am I using the wrong word when I say like, that's not fair?
I mean, I don't think it's so. There's a difference between using the wrong word, which I don't feel like you're necessarily using the wrong word, in that fair just feels like you're being unjustly treated, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what fair means. But I think that depending on the lens that you're looking from it, the lens that you're looking through the situation from, maybe from your perspective, that's what it is. But from the other person's perspective, they don't see it the same way. So that's also the tough part about the word fair or fair treatment in any type of relationship is, number one, do we have the same definition of what's fair and what's not fair? And
Mm-hmm.
when
That
we're
makes
looking
sense.
at this situation, do we agree on the details and the all the elements of this situation? Because even in your thing, like you just said, if I express something in the relationship and said, this is what I want, this is what I want to see, this is what I expect, what happens if that contradicts something that your partner said, this is what they want to see, this is what how they feel, this is what they expect?
That makes
And it's
sense.
about coming to that compromise and figuring out, okay, what am I okay with sacrificing? And if you're saying that in that moment, unless I get what I want, because I said this, it's not fair. While to you, that's reality. You feel like you're being unjustly treated. That other person may not feel the same way, that that is unjust treatment. They may feel like, meeting in the middle is the compromise, to where you feel like the compromise on this time is, you doing 100% what I want. And on the next time or times in the past, we did 100% of what you want. But somebody's viewpoint on that may all be different. So I think that's just having that conversation of truly figuring out, like, all right, what do we both want? Where are we both okay with? It's okay. I tell Brie this all the time. It's okay to fight for your position in a relationship. Like, there may be something that you're okay with doing, but if you want to put up a fight about it and try to get your thing across, it's like, it's not wrong with just like trying and really pushing. But then if it gets to that point, then it's like, oh, okay.
Like, look at where we are now.
Bria's gotten her way a lot, a lot. But if you ask her,
But
she'll make it seem like she hasn't.
But okay, we all know that, our upbringing has a lot to do with our like dating and intimate relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up with a mom who did foster care, like we had 6 kids at one point, and my mom has always been a very fair person. And I think from a young age, I was taught like being fair is right. And like, regardless of the situation, it's like it's always about fair, fair, fair. And even growing up and like getting to the point where I started my first business, I remember feeling like the world was out to get me and like life just isn't fair. And every time something didn't happen that, would be for me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this isn't fair. Why is this happening to me? And it's like always this act of like playing the victim.
Yeah, I want to read. I'm big on definitions just so people understand.
Oh, yeah. What's it say?
Fair says without cheating or trying to achieve unjust advantage. So impartial and just without favoritism or discrimination. But the one thing I think is important in that definition is the word just. And that is one of the words that justice is derived from. And when you look at, let's say, even our justice system in the US,
Mm,
right, we
mm,
look at what everybody considers to be just varies from person to person, system to system, state to state, different ideologies, different ways that people look at things in their lives. So it's only understood that in a relationship, what you feel like may be just may not be the same that what somebody else feel like may be just. So even growing up, what you feel like may be fair may be different. Like to for somebody in a dynamic, let's say with 5 children or let's say 3 children, they may think the person who's behaving the best may be able to do something first or get a piece of cake or ride in the front seat. Let's say ride in the front seat. One parent may say, "Oh, you had the best grades, you get the front seat. That's fair. You've been behaving the best, so you get the advantage." One parent may say, with a different family, "You're the oldest. That's fair. You have seniority. You ride in the front seat." To different people, that sense of justice and what's right just depends on, like you said, a lot of how you grew up and how you view the what's just and what's fair, and also what you are okay with giving up and not giving up. Mm-hmm. So it's like that's what makes the fairness and the just thing in relationships so tough and such a challenging thing. And like we said when we first came back, relationships are hard work. Is trying to figure out that system of or that place of justice to where you both feel like you're not, you both feel good about a situation. And we had talked about that. Remember with the justice system, the plea deals and stuff like that? We had talked about that. Like how that's on both parts. It's like something happens and it's like, oh, I feel this way about this situation. And we know it's not always right, but the just is that both sides have came to an agreement that this, is the best outcome for both parties given the situation. But in relationships, it can be tough to like try to figure that out and figure out what somebody feels like fair is. But I think that at the foundation of it, which is something that Brie and I always have to keep in mind, is that this person loves you and this person cares about you and this person wants the best for you. So even in a moment to where you feel like you're being unjustly treated, if you communicate that to that person, they're going to be thinking of ways to try to balance the scales to make you like feel better. And even if it's in a moment to where it's like, we go back to dropping the ball with the last episode, they're going to be thinking of ways like, I know this isn't exactly everything that this person wanted, but all right, how can I do something that, could possibly make up for it or could put them in a better space knowing that they made the sacrifice. And I think that that's why you got to look at situations that when somebody compromises on something, they're sacrificing something for you, and you shouldn't take that for granted. You should really look at that and be like appreciative of it and find ways that you can almost reward them for their sacrifice.
Dre's talking directly to me right now. You are.
I'm talking to the people.
No, it's to me. I'll take it. And I'll also say this. I just had a flashback.
Okay.
Of when my Jeep Wrangler got repoed, and my response was, "This is so not fair. I've been working so hard and I have hid it across the street. How did they even find it?" And like my reaction was, "This isn't fair." And so the same reaction I had when we were talking the other day about the thing that, like I said, I think Dre's telling me, he's talking to y'all, but he's talking to me. And my response was like, "That's so not fair," versus like, "This sucks." Right. And it's like when my car got repoed, the correct response could have been, "This sucks. I've been working really hard. Like I was almost caught up." Like, it's like to say this isn't fair. Again, it's like the world is against me mentality.
And that's the thing about knowing your partner, because we talked about this in a previous episode. Where Brie and I come from are completely different, and our lens of looking through life is completely different. Like she said that it'll be interesting once we have kids, because I've always been like a straight and narrow type of person, to where she's kind of been like F the system. So in her mind, government just in general is unjust. It's not fair, even the way it currently is. So it's like for her getting her car repoed is like, man, I work so hard. The government taking people money anyways, and there's all these homeless people on the street. This is unfair. Why are you worrying about me? Where's all this other crime actually happening, and you gonna take this away from me? But I
see your neck rolling.
That's her lens of life, is that just the way the system is set up for people isn't fair in general.
Yeah.
Like Bree will cry seeing somebody come up in Baltimore and spray the window thing on their car, because she'll feel like that's not fair, like that they're in that position to where they have to do something like that. But that's just her lens of life.
Me sad.
So it's like for us, it's like us understanding that we have different perspectives on how we view things, and our definition of fair and what's just is different, but we have to find ways to come to a conclusion. And like I said before, knowing the person's heart, that person has having equity built up in a relationship helps a lot of times to get through certain situations, because you know who the person is, what they're intentionally trying to do, and if they could do everything for you, they would. So if they are putting up any type of restriction or any type of feeling and saying something isn't fair, number one is because they feel passionately about it. And if they feel passionately about it, you should take attention to that, to know that like this means something to them, because this sign right here, you're going to need that for other parts in your relationship to know this thing means a lot to them. And then also understanding like how to push through that and what things you need to put in place and a plan to put in place in order to, you know, see you guys through to the other side.
So basically, it's important to make sure you guys have the same definition and understanding of what fairness is. And also, going back to another episode, a point that we made was understanding that the way a relationship starts is not the way it's going to continuously be. So although, you know, you might meet a man who's doing 80 and you're giving 20 financially, or you're doing 80 of the housework and he's doing 20 of the housework, like that could totally flip flop on the other end and be something totally different a year or 2 years from now. So being flexible and knowing that the person that you're with them not because of the percentage of finances that they give you or the roles or tasks that they do, but that you just want to do life together in general, and that those things can shift and change as time goes on.
Yeah, and I think that that is like we had talked about. We can always reference old episodes. Bree talked about that preparation and conversations that you have going into a relationship. That one way to make fair, you know, a more, you know, unanimous decision within your household and understanding what that means collectively is by having conversations and setting standards on what you guys will do. Like, hey, if you come into the relationship and we are at a point to where somebody's looking for work and another person is working, is having a conversation with each other and saying like, hey, you know, this is what's going on. You know, I'm taking care of this. Do you mind taking care of that? And then once you set that standard, if somebody is slacking off on what they said they would do, then them saying that's not fair is universally understood, because you guys decided what roles and what responsibilities you would have. But if you don't have those conversations, truly setting a standard for what your expectations are in a relationship, then what somebody else may feel is fair is maybe judged off of what they seen with their parents, to where, you know, you're judging it off of what you did in the last relationship. So there is no true understanding of what that means, and you guys will a lot of times miss the mark. So that's where we are on this episode of Worth the Wait. What fair really looks like in a relationship. Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. If you're listening, please leave a review, and also go in that right corner and click that plus button and follow this podcast and subscribe, you know, to the show. You can follow us on social media at It's Dre Smith,
at Brianna Aponte,
and at Relationship Restored on all platforms, Instagram and TikTok and Threads. Peace.